Right, this is going to be the next episode of the Best Damn League show with me and Peter here. And our guest for this one is the notorious leader who has been in the LEC a number of different times. I notice whenever he comes into the LEC, it's like he must have done that famous joke I always do, the cursed monkey paw. He just wished as a young, idealistic young man, I just want to be in the LEC. And then the problem is he was, but then every time it's like the most cursed team ever, roster full. But the last one is the most mental one. If people don't remember, I'll never hear anyone tell me on Reddit he was bad and that's why he's not in LEC. They sold the whole slot, guys. And when you buy the slot, you don't buy the players. It's just like you make your own team. And spoiler, if you look at who bought the slot, they were never going to be going for non-French players. So that one was just that. So I actually thought that last one, if people forget Leader, because obviously now people on Reddit are sort of doing the hate train against you. If people just go back to the first split you were playing with Astralis when you were in LEC a couple of years ago, mate, you were smurfing. You were pretty good, right?
We played good, yeah, that split, I remember.
Yeah, that was even the one, by the way, where actually most players in the team who all had like cursed names, like 113 guy was there, Young Hoon, aka Execute was there. There's loads of people who actually do it. Kobe was actually unironically like an MVP candidate for real, Peter. Not like
he was always
not your bullshit, but yeah, for real he was. He was actually smurfing them. He was actually killing it. He was really good. So no, I just thought I'd put some. Believe it or not, why am I doing this role? I'm just going to be the counterbalance to insert some positivity into the scene about people rather than just, harp on cynically on their negative and weaknesses, etc. But obviously, Leader did play recently with the Ruddy Sack. Again, we're not going to get into that. Spoiler. He had a bunch of MSI champions that also didn't win the game, so it's whatever in it. And this is an LEC show, so who gives a fuck? So let's get into the LEC then. So what we always do, Leader, is we always have the guests start. So what good point are we bringing to the show in light of LEC playoffs? What are we going to do?
I think it's very obvious, but Fnatic bot lane, I think they're very good. It was expected for them to be really good, and I'm happy that they didn't shit the bed, honestly. They're playing every single lane good. Their champions are good as well. It makes sense together, and there's obvious direction coming on, and there's a strong point of play that they can play around for Fnatic as a team. They can always trust in their bot lane to do something. So I'm very happy that both Mickey X and Upset, which has been more or less some controversial name, especially Upset, and a little bit Mickey. I don't know why Mickey would be a controversial point of view for people, the public, but that's just how it is. And I'm happy that they're both doing good. And I think they're going to keep doing good in the playoffs.
Okay. And how do you feel do you still feel this way even after the G2 series?
I think so, yeah. I think the problem wasn't really their bot lane that game.
Yeah,
now
sure.
that I'm talking about their bot lane, I think it was more or less their drafts. I think Fnatic have had some bad drafts, and that is I'm continuing with the bad point of the thing, the second one. And
we'll go to that later. It's all good. We'll go to that.
All right.
Yeah,
that's good.
Okay. Okay. So. Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I think their bot lane's playing really, really well. I think there were definitely so I'm wondering whether other people are going to be talking about G2, so I don't want to go too far into it. But yeah, I think that G2 definitely got them. But I think that there were things that Fnatic was showing in best of ones, which led to them maybe being at risk from being exploited. I think that basically Oscar, I think, was the top laner that's played the least different champions, whereas Broken Blade is the one who's played the most. And definitely G2 played into that benefit inside the game.
What are your bigger thoughts about the bot lane, though, Peter?
For Fnatic.
The Fnatic one, aka the good point.
Sorry. No. I think basically Fnatic bot lane have played well. Thank you for stopping me getting sidetracked. I think Fnatic bot lane have played well. I think that the big tests will be because nobody expected them to lose to Heretics, right? So they've played one series where they were expected to win. Well, two series they were expected to win, and I think that whilst they were fine in the early game against G2, I think that it was hard to play the game, so we can't really learn anything from the G2 series about where they rank. But they're going to, if you look at the top teams that are left in, right, the top 4 teams, they all are very, very heavily reliant on their bot lane to do things, right? So if Fnatic are playing in the finals, because they're going to have to go through bottom bracket with lower bracket, sorry, and they're going to have to beat either G2 again, or Koi, or KC, depending on who, G2 or KC, and Koi, then they're going to have to be at their best to beat those teams. And right now, they look like it in best of ones. I don't put too much weight into the GT.
Are you someone who is a critic over his career, Peter, of Upset? Like, have you, like, obviously he's someone who, by the way, also the Reddit crowd have all gone super hard against at times. Are you someone who's ever thought he did have seasons that weren't good or splits that weren't good, or have you ever seen the issues? What's your general take on Upset?
On Upset, so historically, my thoughts on Upset has been really, really good 2v2 player, really good individual mechanics, is a, let me pick my word here very carefully, sometimes doesn't go, it plays a little bit too safe around team fights, especially this is when he was coming to the league, when obviously Kobe was my AD carry back in the day, and Kobe would never hesitate to flash into things like this. Like, the thing about Upset is Upset generally got a lead, but we had a rule that Upset needs to have like a over 1k gold lead to be more impactful than Kobe in team fights, and that's how we would kind of play to him. I think since after he left Schalke, no, I think it was Schalke. Oh, it was a team with Nuke Duck. What was Nuke Duck's team again? Origin, right? Yeah, Origin. After he left Origin and went to Fnatic, then he played much more. Then he was able to be more aggressive. But basically, at the start of his career, I thought he was somebody that played really, really within himself. But he's not the same player that he used to be 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay. By the way, Leader, since you picked him up, what do you think on that? Because I will say one thing that is kind of funny is people have personality-wise tried to make Upset like the next Forgiven or whatever. But I will actually admit I'm a fan of his. But he does play the game a little bit more like Reckless. He does do that thing where like he can always put it this way. There's this concept we have in Counter-Strike where there was a Russian AWPer called Jim who was also the in-game leader. So he could like call when to save in the round. And what you could always see if he was in like the middle of like a 3v3 was he was just looking for like the wrong kill to happen on his team and they just back straight out the fight. And it's like, they definitely, you do see that sometimes from Upset. He has a little bit of that. What do you think of him as an ADC?
I think I agree with Peter. I think he had the tendency of being a little bit too safe before, and I don't know if it comes from lack of trust in teammates or if he has such a good view of the team fight in like beforehand that he knows it's going to be lost, even if he goes in, or like whatever the case might be. But now I think it's gotten better. I think there's still a little bit of that going on in some team fights still now in season 15. But overall, it's something that is completely forgivable with all the other like positive, strong points that can be as a result. And this being a little bit sometimes not going in when it can be a little bit volatile in the fight. I think it can't like it's necessarily not the worst trait if all the other traits are so overwhelmingly good.
Yes, I'm with you. So I would actually agree on the good point. I think this bot lane is fantastic. Like, I still think I've yet to actually see. I want to see how the playoffs play out. If the Hansama Labrov one even is the best. I didn't think Labrov played that well in that series. But he actually looked like he was trying not to int essentially to me. I thought it was just Hansama had some fucking banger games. And obviously that Ezreal was fucking sick early on, wasn't it? So to me, I actually think Upset looks very, very good in this team. I don't really have any downside to him. It's how I know if people are just haters on Reddit. Like, bro, if you watch this game, the idea he didn't go in. Some of the others shouldn't have fucking gone in. What was his jungler support doing all the time when they had a lead? Like, holy fuck, bro. Like, that was some, like, Hillsang level shit. Like, why are you just going in? We have a lead. Like, we can choose where the fights take place. So, yeah, I wouldn't be putting the blame on him. And even in his bot lane, bro, I'd be looking at fucking Mickey X like this. Mate, you're not beating all those allegations from last year if you do this shit, mate. Like, what are you talking about? So, yeah, that wasn't good. But I do think 2v2, they looked freaking sick. If you can actually get him to a real team fight where he isn't behind... It does mad fucking damage. Like, this is what people don't seem to realise. You can't really bait and then still have, like, the crazy damage chart. Like, if you bait, the damage chart isn't going to be there, is it? Like, you're only going to be last hitting the champions. That's why I've always said, I don't care if an ADC has, like, kills. I want to see the damage. Show me what he actually did in the team fight, whether he fucking danced around. Who gives a fuck who gets the kill at the end? No, I think it's a banger. Look, obviously, it's a controversial point now because they're coming off the week where they lost. But again, just go watch those games. If you were an ADC, you got that game to the point where it was winnable completely. You weren't the one who entered the game. So, okay.
Yep, and it's worth saying as well that even though, like, I criticized him a bit on team fights, his laning phase on a team that has Razork and Mickey, like, you just want the best laners and then let Razork and Mickey, like, win the map for you, right? So.
And also, listen, it was said by him on Twitter and by Grabs in the interview afterwards in the press conference. Supposedly he was ill. Supposedly he had a fever. Now, look, you can do all that thing of like, yeah, but for the player played through a fever. What about Michael Jordan? Like, oh, yeah, but it's the thing. Put it this way, I don't say for the G2 side, it puts an asterisk. They won the game. But I would say this. Let's watch if they rematch again in the playoffs. And let's watch the low bracket now when supposedly I'm going to guess he's not ill. And let's see if there's a level of difference in play. Then maybe for him, we put an asterisk next to that performance. Just like we would, by the way, I would do that for anyone if I actually heard they were ill. I've even heard in the past, like, there was times when Faker was ill when he bombed some of those series like in the summers back of the year in Korea, or he had their hand injury, etc. That does count. My point there is you can't tell me he's the best player if he's got a fucking hand injury. Like, well, pick one or the other. So, okay. Right, Peter, what is your good point?
Okay, my good point is about KC scouting. So I'm sure that we're going to talk a little bit about KOI later. But one thing that was very, very impressive to me is that KC had rough games against Vitality and KOI earlier on in the season, right? Against KOI earlier in the season, they were basically getting destroyed through bot, and then Jojo had his Ari incident. And against Vitality, they were also getting, I think they were also getting destroyed through bot lane, and then they kind of like out team fought and caught Hilly a couple of times, right, to get back into the game. So first thing, they didn't allow those things to happen, but also they showed like a really good understanding for how to attack people's tendencies in the mid game. So again, when we get to KOI, we'll go into this in more detail. But like against Vitality, for instance, game 2, they get an early lead. They get this lead through execution. You know, they're lane swapping. Vitality mess up their dives. They get their dives. But Vitality, really good team fighting team, fight their way back into the game. But KC have recognized something about how Kazi is contesting waves in the mid game. And basically, one thing about Kazi is he constantly bluffs when he's contesting mid waves. And they found a specific map setup that they could punish Kazi really, really hard for doing this, and they punished him twice, I think, in the game. Once wasn't a major thing, but one time Linkers had to die for him, and it led to KC getting Baron. And it shows me how they played against Kazi against Vitality, and how they played against Jojo and Alvaro against KOI, that they have a really, really good read on how to. They're not changing everything about themselves, but they are adapting their play to punish tendencies of the other team. And I think this shows that they've had good prep, and obviously against this team you have to beat them through bot lane, and it's not easy to beat this team through bot lane. That's what I would say.
What do you think, Leader?
I think I agree with Peter. Their bot lane has been the driving force of the K-Corp for sure. And whenever they dictate the game, it's always easy as well. Obviously, like there's Kana as well that is silently winning every single lane and is like playing very broken champions. But I will have to agree with Peter on the scouting part. I think I noticed it as well. They're actually getting up a lot of good plays off on people in mid game, which is like not an easy thing to do in general when you look at the game from a very traditional point of view where everything is standard and you move with the members and you respect this wave and you respect that wave. But when you see someone's tendencies like that and you can call it out, like Cardis, for example, then it's really well prepared scouting. Or maybe it's from the players where they notice that, like maybe Caliste is saying, for example, this guy is trolling on these waves all the time. Can we do something on this timer or something? So it can go both ways, but in the end, yes, I agree.
I will say, normally, if you notice, Peter, I'm more on like the narrative side or just eye test of like player performance. I don't usually comment on drafts. And actually, in Fearless Draft, I obviously knew there's going to be a million get thrown up that no one knows, even the team doing the draft, if it's going to get to that comp, etc. But I actually did think, if you look at both series, this is actually very shrewd drafting. Like, one thing I like is, if you think of the team they have, they've actually just like streamlined a lot of the drafts. You actually know when the draft comes in who should carry in the game. Like, there's not some big mystery of like, oh, it could go any other way. Like, I actually even like when they would sort of flex between having the more supportive mid or actually having Vadi on the carry pick. And then I agree with you about like the mid-game moves, because that's one thing you could actually have looked at this team. And if anything, it's KOI that should have all that. They're the one that kept the same core before. They're bringing in like the hands mid who's just going to obey Elyoy and do it. But they didn't. They looked really messy. Whereas if I look at Carmine Corp, who brought in like, this is quite a like bizarre setup of players. So, like, if you think about it, you look at that lineup and you go, who would even the shot caller be? Because, like, I'm going to assume Canna doesn't speak much English in the game and definitely isn't calling the fucking game. Targamas just doesn't speak seemingly any language in the game. And then fucking, my joke on Vladdy would just be he's Greek, so I don't know if anyone could understand him if he spoke. That's even a joke on myself, because when I used to talk to Forgiven, I used to be like, fuck it, you got to slow it down, mate. I can't hear what you're saying. This is fucking mental. We're in one-on-one in a call here. Like, give me a break. So I assume it has to be Caliste calls around himself in the game when he's fed. And I have to assume this means actually the dream which everyone had when Yike joined this team is he becomes more of a captain. He sort of takes over the team. He's the veteran now. Whereas when you're in G2, like, if Hans Sammer tells you we're grouping after he's smashed the lane, you just fucking do it, mate. If Caps goes in, you do it. You know what I mean? If Broken Blades players come top, you say, yes, sir. When shall I come? That just makes sense. So, yeah, I have to say, like, Army Corp is gradually cooking. Like, they look better and better as the split goes on. It's very impressive.
Yep. I mean, for me, they look a lot more comfortable playing around Caliste and Vladdy than they do playing around Canna, is what I would say. Canna, often, he's getting individual advantages, but when they play into his lane, it's because there's an obvious dive coming, right? They're not really like fogging for pressure and things like this in the same way that they are for their mid laner and bot laner. So
yes.
I think that's an interesting thing to track. But yeah, definitely, like, you know, I've been very, very impressed by Vladdy this year. I mean, he was decent last summer, but he's overperformed my expectations for sure. I think of all the players in the league, he's the one who's really, really surprised me. I thought he was going to be good, but not as good as he is right now.
What do you think about Vladdy, leader?
I haven't really played against him this year, like neither in solo queue or like especially in scrims the last 2 years, but he must have for sure improved, right? But I think another thing is I think the level of the whole league has gone down. I think the level of the whole league has been going down each singular year, and to be fair, there aren't that many good mid laners. It seems like Larsen is in a slump as well, and then there's like Jojo Pyun that was supposedly to be really, really good as well. That hasn't really performing that well. But there's obviously like Caps and Humanoid still that is doing good. But it seems like Vladdy can hold his own in the league even against them. So that is good to see. But I think the role of mid lane is, as long as you're not int feeding in the early laning phase, I think game is very, very easy to be piloted around. If your bot lane is always ahead on every single mid wave, it means you don't need to really respect the strong side or like the weak side, whatever. If your bot lane is good, your jungler is good, because they can always fog into the lane you're on, for example. And if you're good, you know what to do with it, and it seems like they know how to play together with it as well, like Vladdy included. So that's good to see.
Along those lines, and let me ask you, since obviously in hardcore fearless draft, you can't have it's just to say Orianna, or I play the Orianna and you play you can't have those bullshit metas. So what do you actually think about like the mid lane meta at the moment? Like, I mean, I even saw, even though people think you just hard forced the fucking Yasuo and Aurelia altar, I saw you even played a fucking Aurora game, mate. What's going on? So what do you think of mid lane at the moment?
I think mid lane is I don't think there's many that broken champions. I think the two standout picks that you should prioritize in draft right now is probably Yon and Azir. These two champions are the most flexible you can do in every single draft, that will fit in every single draft. And then there's like Aurora, that is a very, very strong champion, but you need a comp around it properly, just like how Vi first pick needs a comp around it. And when Vi Wukong is in the game, or Pantheon, these three, you can always like choose between Ahri, Aurora, and Talia, like Akali, like anything. It feels like there's like so much flexibility in mid lane role. You can play anything you want to. Chovy played Set, for example, yesterday in mid lane, and all of these things. So I think you can do whatever you want to with the mid lane role. And the more champions you know how to play, it's like the better it is.
So I've got a question for you here, Lida, which is that, so obviously you mentioned how obviously Azir, Yone, and then Talia with their combos and things like this are really, really OP champions in draft. Do you think that as we get further on in a fearless best of 5, mid lane becomes more important or bot lane becomes more important?
I think bot lane will become more important because there aren't as many champions in bot lane as there are in mid lanes. There's so many good champions you can pick in mid lane, but there aren't so many because usually 1 to 3 draft is very heavily focused around the strongest AD for blue side as well. So I think bot lane will always be the most important one in the draft, except if there's like very, very OP broken champions, because there's 3 OP champions in top lane, for example, but they usually get easily traded or like banned out or something early on, like Cassandra, Ambessa, and Jace, these 3 champions. And then like on ADC, there's like so many champions that you can like pick in a niche situation as well. Like for example, Draven. I think but the most important thing is you need to be very careful with your resources in bot lane drafting in Fearless. And I don't really want to bring us in, but I think we did not manage our resources well in drafts yesterday, for example, in best of 5. And hopefully, like LEC teams knows this, and that's why I think like bot lane is very, very important when it comes to that.
Yeah, I mean, I saw things like Zoe and Set and things like this, but like Zoe in particular, I mean, I think we'll see Karma mids and things like this. I'm kind of with you, but I think that means we're going to see weird things in mid, because that you play just for priority and you just play mid into bot as a series progresses. And I think this is one of the things of Fearless. We have these OP champions that, you know, kind of must be picked, but you can always pinch AD carry. A lot of the lower tier AD carries, like Misfortune and like Twitch, if you want to go that direction, Siva, they all have these very, very clearly defined weaknesses that you can attack. And I think that means that from my perspective in Fearless, it means that mid lane becomes the one that has to adapt to kind of cover for the AD carry's weakness. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of, like, I'm interested to see what that means as we get into best of 5s and especially international competition, where for this format moving forwards. Because definitely I feel like we're two mobile AD carries away from this format being interesting. Is what I say.
The thing is, I kind of agree with you, and at the same time, I kind of disagree with you, because I think mid lane priority is not as important as it was before, just because of how waves work and how fast waves die, and like how you actually cannot stack waves as before, because you never see mid laners actually come into a bot lane dive or a top lane dive, because there's so much swapping going on as well. So if you have a bad matchup, you just swap and you just play the game for the first few minutes. So I think. Oh, and another important thing I forgot to mention, and I think that other people actually aren't talking about, after they nerfed items, I think snowballing has become much weaker because gold has become less valuable as to how efficiency of items have become. So the champions are what matters more now, like compared to before, and you need to pick champions that actually make sense together in mid jungle, or that make sense together or make sense against the enemy champions, and that's what I think what mid lane is about right now mainly.
Okay, makes sense. Especially when AD carries like don't have mobility, then you can it makes the team fights a little bit easier for certain champions. No,
yeah, let's say like all the mobile champions are out, then you can just slam like a lower tier mid laner like Orianna with Jarvan or Nocturne, for example. There you go. You have something that makes sense together, that is good in the game, useful champions, and then you just make your draft around that like that.
Sure, makes sense. Do you think we'll see Yasuo?
There was Yasuo in LCK, but there can be Yasuo, but it's very hard to pick, I think, with even when you go far into the Fearless, because you will have to be playing against Keria, for example, for that to be useful, like Diana Yasuo or something, because nobody is just going to blind pick Enchanter, like play Caitlyn Karma, for example, you know, which Yasuo is like good into.
Makes sense.
Okay, my good point is actually on bot lane. It's going to be Caliste from Carmine Corp, and the fact that he's already started in the playoffs, and he's already, by the way, like the upper bracket final in his first ever split. And even though he came in with like impossible hype, like you can't basically imply someone's like the second greatest player in esports almost, where they haven't played one pro game, which is what the French people tried to do. I can see at least why they got carried away, because he is actually cracked out. Like, he's unbelievable. In fact, one of the things is, this is exactly the sort of player where I wish there was still ProView. Disclaimer, I did invest in the company that made ProView, but that's not the only reason why. Because, mate, when you see him do his outplays, you actually do need to see what he's clicking with the mouse. Because when you see how he actually, like, dances around, like, fucking skill shots, like, when he goes right back in on the edge of the fucking damage area, it's actually straight fire. You would never know if you took the nameplates off, this is actually, like, a rookie. And not only that, a rookie in a team with more experienced players. Like, they actually do just play around him as if he is supposed to be, like, the best ADC in the league. And then lastly, the other thing that's crazy is, I made this point on some of the insight. Normally, when someone's a rookie, I expected a really extreme player profile. I expect either like you're a maniac and you go in and you try and kill everyone, you think you're the best, or you play like conservatively. You don't want to get made to look silly. You sort of wait. Dude, he actually has the balance between both. Like the amount of times I've seen him actually like go in and do max damage and just get off a kill where like you do it on the last tick of damage. But then also the times where he'll do stuff like when the other team's backing off, he'll like step forwards when he knows everything's on cooldown. So they like try a stupid re-engage with nothing, and then he just backs off and his team peels for him and he just wins the fight. Like, it's actually, like, I'm being serious. If you took the nameplate off, I would never know like this was the player that's a rookie. I would assume this is like a veteran ADC. What do you think, Leader?
I think I agree with you. Like the most good thing about Caliste is I wouldn't say it's even the clicks. I think the way he fake pressures on mid waves or like around fights or like baits people to go in on him to like start a good fight is like the best thing about him, especially when you're on a competitive scene in front of people playing, because you can do this easily in scrims and solo queue, but it's not really easy to
Sure.
replicate it on stage. You know, like in an important game. But he's doing that really well, and that's what I think Carzzy does as well, like the fake pressure, you know. But maybe he does it like overdoes it sometimes, you know. But I agree with you that he has a good balance of stepping forward and knowing when to step back as well at the same time.
For sure. Also, like we know quite a lot of their comms and from ERLs, and he was, you know, Crowley level shot calling. You know, like
Right.
non-stop talking and calling. He calls for resources at the right time. He was doing this like back when Syncroft was playing with them. So when was that? That was like 2023, 2022.
I
I
think it was
can't
the year
remember.
after Reckless, I assume so, yeah.
Yeah. But basically the so this is something he's had for a long time. I love that he's not afraid to go in. And it's worth saying, you know, that who's he played against, who's he outplayed 2v2, in swap or in lane this week. He's Super and Alvaro, and it's Kazi and Hylissang, right? Who are considered the key, at least by the public, is the key factors for their team, for the success and failure of their team. And him and Tarkovas have been destroying them, right? So you know, I'm sure G2 will have a tactic in hand. But you know, bot lane is very important right now. 2v2 in bot lane is very important. This guy is a demon on Caliste, and you know, they're on the one hand, he's not showing fear, but on the other hand, I don't think teams yet know how they're supposed to counter him yet. Maybe,
Sure.
maybe he's uncounterable, but I think the more VODs we get, the more teams will have a better read on him. But I think right now he definitely hasn't shown any weakness. I don't know if I was a G2 coach, I wouldn't know what I would do against him. I'd probably just play against his teammates next week.
True. Right, okay. What is your bad point, leader?
My bad point is honestly like how disappointing like Fnatic drafts are. Like it's very disappointing to see them draft comps that actually doesn't make sense. Especially like it was like the standout ones was obviously in the losses, right? The first game they gave Skarner away and they picked Ivern into it, but it was like everything else that they like drafted around it didn't make any sense into it, and they got very broken champions, and the game was just unplayable. And you should not be matching a front to back comp against Skarner ever, I think, because it's the best front to back champion in the game. And that's what happened, and they lost the game. It was very disappointing to see. But the most disappointing ones is the series against G2, where their first pick, for example, did get a Skarner, and then they match it with an Ari, for example, and they completely give up the Skarner in the draft, and they pick a full dive comp with Rel and Ambessa, I think it was Rel Ambessa and Ari, but in the end, it doesn't make much sense against what Fnatic had, and not Fnatic, but G2 had. They had like actual a good front to back comp with a side laner that wins, a good core. So I think that was very disappointing to see. And even in game two, like once again, they didn't even learn from their mistakes. They go into draft, they get a first pick Vi, when I think they should be first picking something else, and then they match it with a Mel, which doesn't make
Yeah,
much
that's not good.
sense.
That's not good.
Yeah, they match it with a Mel that is like a very low damage champion. Like I don't even know what I would compare honestly Mel to Hui, which is a champion that thrives when people run into them, because you can always put down your E's and root them, and then like you can stack up your Q's. You get countered by mostly like outrange, which usually outrange is very good in competitive, and people do it. But you don't match Vi with Mel, for example. You should like just secure the Ari, secure the Aurora, any of these champions together, pick something that makes sense, and play the game. And once again, game two, G2 just had a better draft. They had something that made sense. I'm looking at it right now. They had a Pantheon with Aurora, like I said, that makes sense together. They have a strong early game jungler, a strong laner mid lane that can make plays, like a lot of playmaking going on that makes sense. And they have a Leona as well in the mix of all of it. And then they have a Swain that does good into lane in Cassandra, has side prio against all of them, and counters both like Poppy and Vi and Cassandra, all three of these champions. So I think it's just very, very disappointing to see Fnatic, that I think is the best team in the league, is drafting like this, because it's more or less unacceptable.
I agree with you on the first G2 game. I think that if you're going to go Vi, you either need something that can dive in, Silas Ari, or you need something with really, really good, reliable burst damage to follow up on the engage. So you just let Vi go in, and then you I don't know, you flash out with Victor, or like you put your entire burst combo on top, and definitely you don't want these kind of like DPS champions, like Mel, I'm not a big fan of Zia, for instance, and things like this. So I definitely agree with that. I think game 2 is a bit harsh because I don't think you can anticipate Warwick. But
sure. Is it even that good a pick though, Peter?
I have literally no idea. I'm going to be honest. I haven't even seen a Warwick in scrims for like 5 years or something.
Sure, of course.
So maybe it's good. It looked fine in the game. But obviously, like, Warwick is. I mean, he's going to be good. He's going to be good for the first 10 minutes, and then he's going to fall off a cliff.
No. Warwick is a broken champion. It's actually it's a very broken champion in solo queue. Warwick, Warwick. Broken Blade actually liked to play Warwick before even these changes. Like, if you just looked at his solo queue, he was playing a lot of Warwick, which made sense because there was like I think he was picking it into Cassante because it's very good into Cassante as well, and it's win rate wise when you look at the statistics. Like, it's doing good into Ambessa as well. And they're playing what? They're playing Ari, that is a low damage champion, into... There's no Azir he's playing against as Warwick, for example. So there's like barely any damage if the Jinx doesn't get fed. But the Jinx wasn't really that fed as well. They were like wave clearing against with Severe Lulu. And they have a Skarner as well. Skarner does deal a lot of damage, but Warwick can just out-heal it. Sure. I think Warwick was just a fantastic pick, honestly, from Broken Blade. But you can for sure anticipate it, because you can think of any champion they can pick. They can go even Darius this game if they want to on 5-pick. They can pick whatever they want to, just because they have Azir Maokai, which is so broken together, and there's like barely any counterplay to that thing. And then they have a Severe Lulu that is like good with Maokai, makes sense, and they just outrange because they have more movement speed. And it's just hard to play. I think the draft is just very hard because they lose side lane and they lose 5v5, and it's hard for them to engage, and their engage is not even reliable.
Go on.
I mean, do you think we're going to see more Warwick as the season progresses?
I think people should pick this champion up more, especially with how the meta top laners are right now. Into Ambessa, it's great. Into Cassante, it's great. And it has a lot of spots, I think. I think you should be able to pick champions like this when you know 2 champions are going to get banned out in 4-5 if you want to drop. Just have that 3rd or 4th champion that makes sense, like, ready.
Yep, makes sense.
When I watch these drafts, because here's the thing, obviously Grabs will always just play defense and go, oh, I guess I fucked it up, guys. Like, spoiler, if some of my recent videos have taught you anything, sometimes you are completely, your balls are in a vice with some of these star players. Like, you get to the point where, the LS would be going, time to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And have 7 picks, but like, the guy who's in your team will only play 2 things and he wants a specific matchup, like it's a nightmare. So I don't believe that Grabs picks all these picks. Like, I'll tell you what, there's certain Western players actually need, back in the day, you had to like force them to watch LCK. Some of them need to be banned from watching LCK. Like, why the fuck would Razork ever be on Skarner? I don't even get it. That's not even a pick. That's his game, bro. Like, he can be the best player in the whole LEC, and then we're just gonna like watch LCK and go, guess we'll just pick the Skarner thing. Bro, why? It just doesn't even make sense to me. When I have a player like that, I'm not doing the global meta. I'm doing his pick to give his skill set the biggest strength in the game. I don't like that aspect. Then I have a quick question for you, which is, what do you think about both games against G2? The fact that they burned Draven and what's the other one?
Caliste?
No. Zyra and Draven bans both times. Both games they did those bans.
You can go ahead first, Peter.
What do you think,
so
Peter?
I think Draven is always a really, really good ban into hands, especially in a best of 3. I think in a best of 5, you can maybe flip it one game, but I don't think you want to do it in best of 3. Zyra against Razork is definitely, it's his best champion. Like, he's really, really fucking good on Zyra.
No, but the joke is he's banning it.
Yeah.
That's what I don't get.
I agree. I mean, maybe they just didn't want to first. I don't know. I think so. The Draven ban, I get. The Zyra ban, I I don't understand so much. I think that they have more tools into it, but maybe they've seen something in scrims.
I think the thing with Zyra ban can come a lot from the mid laner, I would say, because you're kind of forced to play an AD mid laner with Zyra or a mage. But I think mage is like much worse. But if you want Zyra, you should just pick the Yone as well. Just blind pick it, and you shouldn't care about any single matchup. But maybe like Humanoid cares about. He does not maybe want to play Yone, so picking Zyra is a little bit harder. Or they think like these scenarios where they actually have Zyra better, like banned, is just better for the draft, and maybe that's what ended up. But I think you should never ban. Wait, were the blue side both sides? I think blue side ban on Zyra does make sense, honestly, because it's very hard to first pick Zyra and then you play into a full outrange comp with a mage and everything. It can be hard. But so it's completely fine, I think. But and Draven is just, it's Hansama, right? So you kind of have to ban it against him. But I'm not a big fan of this thing, like especially against a champion like Draven, which is very, very one-dimensional, that can be countered really easily.
You got Razork, you can just dive it. Surely,
yeah, like
you know,
you can. There's like so many good meta champions that are into Draven right now. There's Ashe, there's Varus, there's even Ezreal. I think even Ezreal is good, but maybe banning Draven on blue side, they do this because they have counter pick support as well. But I don't know how valuable the Draven pick will be, because like even the mid lane jungle combos like counter Draven so hard.
And then all I'll say on the game one quickly is, even though, by the way, that was the game that looked like it was awesome and they were just going to fucking stop the game, bro, that is a comp where it's like, you haven't got that much damage. What the fuck? Like, you kind of pay it into a corner at some point in the game.
Yeah, they have a comp that doesn't make any sense together. Like I mentioned earlier, like they have no cohesion going on. Their mid jungle picks doesn't make any sense at all, and even their top lane pick doesn't make any sense at all. And they're just playing the game where they don't know what they want to do. Do they want to front to back, or do they want to dive in? But you get out DPS'd by Severe Azir if you're playing Ahri Jinx, and they lose side lane. That's like the worst thing. Like, they lose both sides in this game. Azir beats both Ambessa and Ahri, and Warwick beats both Ambessa and Ahri as well. So how do they even lane aside? They need to pull the trigger on someone fast if they want to win this game, or be on first on the objectives.
I mean, I think on the Zyra thing, I think that they can afford to give it 1-2 and then pick, Nidalee or something into it. Pick for the outrange themselves. I think if they're going first pick Zyra in the draft on blue, so they were blue side both games, right?
Yes.
But I think if they're first picking Zyra, I agree that if they feel they have to first pick it, then I feel that it's a good ban. But I think you can give Zyra and then go pick it 2-3.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'll be honest. I don't know Warwick versus Ahri in the side lane, but it makes sense that Warwick would beat Ahri in the side lane. I can't. And I've just spilt my drink everywhere on the floor, but it's okay. But sorry, what was I saying here? But yeah, no, I definitely agree on that. I think though, Draven, if these guys play in a best of 5, maybe they'll leave Draven up. But I definitely in a best of 3, I get it for sure.
So you say that, Peter, because you're just thinking of all the amazing Draven games they had. Same by the way back in the day when Patrick used to have it, and they pull it out for that 1B01 and they clap you and you look like an idiot for letting it through. Yeah. And every fan does that shit Wheel of Fortune meme, like, just ban Draven, you idiot, he's good on it. But here's what I don't get. I know loads of top players who are ADC players, and even the ones who are like good on Draven, but it's just not like one of their mains. They all tell me, like, bro, I'll never play that in competitive. Like, if you fuck up in the early levels, the whole game's over. Like, yeah, once you get rolling, it looks super sick. So what I don't get about that is, I just looked this up really quickly. You're not going to tell me, by the way, that Korean players can't play Draven. It is 2% pick ban in LCK right now, by the way. 2%. And no one fucking plays this shit. So that's the thing I don't get. It's like, everyone tells me that, oh, you can't possibly not Hansama's Draven. It's like, mate, if I've got the best ganking jungler in the fucking league, you have to give him it one game and then let them fucking build the comp where he's going to carry the game and then just gangbang him bot lane all day long. Look, this is obviously fucking gold level analysis. I don't pretend to know the game, but whatever. I'm going to do my own counter gold level analysis against him and ban Draven, Peter. There you go.
I mean, Hans is one of the best Dravens playing from behind, is what I would say. Maybe it's just, like,
PTSD
from all of those, from all of those scrims that I've seen over the years. But like, I will tell you, definitely in scrims, the games Hans against Draven, you just you don't play.
Okay.
Like so maybe that's a bit into it, but
I agree with Peter. This has happened to us as well, and also
Right.
Vitality. Like the game we just wanted to remake after Wave 2. Like that's what was
Right.
going on against Hansama and Draven. But like it's completely different on stage, and you can easily like draft around it.
Sure.
That's like what I think.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Right, Peter, what is your bad point?
So my bad point is because so my bad point is I think Irrelevant needs to do more if BDS want to. Like I think Irrelevant is kind of ghosting his responsibility on BDS. And I'll be clear, I think Irrelevant last year was a top 2 at worst, maybe top 3 top laner in the league. I think this guy's cracked. I think he's really good at laning. I think he knows how to team fight. But basically, BDS this year he's been by far the least important player on BDS, and I think that the fact that 113 in Paris are forced to do more than he is not a good thing. And I think that basically in the Koi series, they were getting completely destroyed bot lane in the first game, and they needed to play better around top to get back into the game, you know, just to stabilize their map. Like maybe you have support jungle open up through your top laner's lane and things like this. And they were never able to do that successfully. And in game 2, they were so far ahead in that game. That game should be completely unwinnable. But he's not team fighting properly on Rumble. He's not in sync with the rest of his team. And for a player of Irrelevant's caliber, I think that he needs to step it up for the rest of this playoff series. Because definitely there were a lot of accusations, fairly or not, that SK were not a playoff team. Like they were a team that like underperformed in playoffs last year. I think that was a bit on him. On Misfits, he was probably their best player when he got to playoffs, but definitely on SK and in the one series I've seen so far from BDS in this playoffs, he's been playing within himself, and you can't afford to do that against. If you're in a position where you can be better or you can contest the enemy top laner, you need to be able to do something with it in this game, and they were never able to use him at any point. So they kind of just rolled over when the bottom side 4 were losing.
Yeah, go for it, leader.
I think I agree with Peter as well. I think he was the best, like one of the best top laners in the league last year. I would take him as top 2 as well. Like he was for sure one of the top laners that I would have loved to play with, because like he has a lot of potential. He has good laning phase, and he has just good clicks. Like for eye test, he's like very, very good. But it looks like, from what I saw, the champions that is playing this split is very, very suboptimal. It seems like he doesn't have. He plays a lot of Renekton, as I'm watching right here, and a lot of Cassante. But even the Cassante games, it's like doesn't make much sense that is playing these, or like even the Renekton games, you know, because they have like so little damage in their comps when they're playing Cassante, or like the Renekton is just a useless champion. I think like in this swap meta, like if you pick Renekton blind pick and enemy picks anything, like you are very, very in a rough time, like going forward. Like, and I think like even in LCK they have stopped caring about Renekton completely. Like when they first pick Ambessa, even they just, but there's like barely any games for Irrelevant that is playing any Ambessa here, and I think his meta read on the champions is slightly off. But another thing is like, when a player looks bad suddenly on a new team when he was so good the last split, I think it can come a lot from teammates as well. Communication around objectives, communication around swaps and tempo and everything, and he can be getting messed over. I didn't do a full-on analysis of if that's what's going on, but I know that Irrelevant is better than what he has shown this this split.
I mean, without going into too much detail, they just play through Nuke. Whenever they have the choice, they just play through Nuke, right? And sometimes it's good if he's on a really, really mega fed Tristana, but when he's not, when he's not that far ahead in the game, like it doesn't look pretty. And like I'll be clear, I think Irrelevant is cracked. Like I think this guy is crazy. But yeah, I feel that he's just being asked to just play weak side, and I don't just mean weak side in draft with his picks. I mean like weak side in the game as well. Like he's just being asked to just absorb pressure and just sit there and do his job, and that makes sense for BDS from last year, because that's kind of what they were asking Adam to do, right? Like Adam was just going around on his non-TPE top laner, dropping waves all the time and grouping in so that they can play their 4-1. But Irrelevant is not Adam. and they shouldn't use him in that way because I don't think they're getting the best out of him, and I don't think they could beat the top teams if they try to treat him in that way. Is what I would say.
I'll pick up on what you just said there because I actually think, even though I have talked to BDS coaches in the past, this is pure speculation. I've seen this fucking story before. So if everyone remembers how Irrelevant came into the league, he came into Misfits, right? When Misfits used to have Hirit, who was a guy who wanted to play all the fucking carries and go for solo kills and go crazy. And the problem was, because they actually had like a fucking good ADC and a good mid when he was ahead, that just didn't make sense. It was just a leak in the top lane because anytime he fucked up in the lane or just died a million times, you just couldn't do like a normal team fight. And what you saw was they just brought in Irrelevant, whose job was like, hi, just a German guy with a blue collar hard hat guy here just to fix up the wall here. He was just doing his job. He was just like told it, right? Literally, remember the meme was they just pick a tank top, and then that's how they get that fucking 5v5 front to back team comp where you have the Sivir on fucking Neon or Vethio on some shit with Yumi on him, so he was cracked out, etc. So you have that team, it's working. You get all this like praise, it's going really, really well. Then the problem was, obviously there was shit in playoffs, so it didn't matter at that point in time. Then he comes to SK, and the problem in SK is I think he just got given that player profile of like he just plays like the weak side, like you say, Pete. And the stupidest thing is as well, the reason why all the coaches and stuff I know behind the scenes thought this guy was mega, even on SK, was they used to say he has that like Alfari quality where people always thought like Alfari is only good in lane. It's like, bro, the reason he's exceptional in lane, Alfari, is because he can weak side with the champions and still be really good in the lane, like even on carry picks. Like he used to just always win the lane no matter what. So it meant you could actually still put all your pressure bot if you want, but he would just like grind out like a tiny disadvantage if you should lose the lane or be slightly ahead. But I'll tell you what, it does look like, because I thought he was a really good team fighter, this guy, in past years. This year, this looks way more like he's going to be in that Alfari like Photon category of like, it doesn't matter if you win the lane, but if you then don't do anything in the fucking game and you're not in the team fight. So the way this thing is, you think about this team, they just did the same thing, Peter. They used to have a team last year, if you heard this before, where they have the stable mage player that they put all the resources in. By the way, I can sadly tell you, if you're a fan of BDS, don't worry, they think Nuke is the fucking best player and the true star, and he can be like just below Caps' level. And that's like the one area where I just want to go, pass me that fucking pipe. What's in this shit? Yeah, that's primo, that shit, mate. What's this, NA quality or something? Fucking hell. So I never got that myself because I watched this Nuke guy play and I always just go like, bro, I want to just show Larson the VODs like, that's what you're behind right now, mate. Give me a fucking break. I never trust this guy to carry a fucking lead ever. We'll get into game 2. Don't even worry about that. So in this team, it looks like they had stupid Adam who thought, it's still solo queue in 2024. And I'm just like, solo killing people. Lol, I play the God's Champions. Like, yeah, mate, that works like once in 5 times or something, you idiot. And he was the shittest side laner ever. And then he never understood if the jungler was right behind him in the fucking brush. So I always thought this guy played LEC like it was solo queue. But then in their team, they had the Nuke player that had all the resources. And then Ice, if you got him to a team fight, just carry the team fight, just does DPS. So again, you think like Misfits, easy, just bring in that guy who'll play the weak side and play the Gnar and all that shite, and then he'll just weak side the game, and then that way then Nuke will carry the game and Ice will do all the damage. In theory it works, but to rewind to the beginning of the convo, I actually think Keon Paper should be the best player in their team. Like if I had this guy, think about what we were just talking about with some of the top player picks, bro, there are like carry picks I would have this guy on in games. Like we could fucking win some games off this guy. We could just win some lanes and everything. So I feel like that's why I'll agree with Leader sort of. I don't think this is just like he came into this team and it's like, right, this is how I really want to play League of Legends. This looks like a mixture of like coaching, whatever they get, whatever comps they play in scrims. By the way, when you walk into someone else's team and it's like, and spoiler, any team with like French coach and French players, I don't think you're going to ever go, hey, stop playing around that Nuke guy. I should have all the carry. Like, it's not even going to fucking, that's not even a conversation you have. So I'm actually just worried they've sort of like suppressed his talent a bit, mate. Like this looks whack so far. I thought he was going to be amazing. Bro, I really thought in the offseason, like Fnatic or someone's going to pick this guy up. Like, he's fucking sick.
I mean, for me, the main problem is how little resources he gets in the mid game, right? Like, and to me, that is concerning, right? It's concerning because in the games where, like, I just go back to the first KOI game, like, Nuke is on Aurora, he's like 0-3 or something, and they still keep opening through his side lane and ignore their top laner, right? And to me, this is problematic, right? That's what I would say.
Okay.
I agree with him.
Any final thoughts, Leader?
I think maybe their view of the game is very different because their support has changed as well. Like they had Labro before. I think Labro is a good player, but he's just been disappointing on G2. But if I just don't look at G2 and I only think about BDS Labrov, he was really, really good. And I think he knew how to open up on lanes and how to actually properly pressure with his team. That's why that team more or less functioned, I would say, in mid game. But now they have Powers, who is like a rookie in LEC, right? Even though he's been around for a long time. And the dynamic has obviously changed with the jungler as well. When your jungler support changes in a team, then the whole dynamic of mid game changes, especially if there's like clear idea differences in between the jungler and support, and everyone else can be like dragged into this thing, and some people can look better and some people can look worse, and irrelevant. It just looks like he's one of the ones that look worse now because of that.
From the outside, it looks like 113 is the type of guy who, like, literally, he gets impatient and he always wants to jump in. Is that an accurate read of what he's like?
When I played with 113, he was overstepping. He was trespassing a lot. Let's just say that there was a lot of trespassing into enemy territory, and I was very stressed, and Jung-hoon was very, very stressed as well, seeing this happen. And sometimes it worked out, but on a lot of times it didn't work out as well at the same time. But it looks like he has toned it down a little bit on it, but maybe that impatience is still there.
Okay. So it's Rick James shit, habitual line stepper. I see, I like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah.
So my bad point is actually perfectly segued from this, boys. Please, everyone who didn't watch it, maybe you're just not a fan of BDS, you thought it would just be an easy COI game, please go back, everyone, and watch game 2 of that series. I hate when people in League do, like, the problem with League is, especially like the solo queue aspect is obviously such a grind, and it's so shit because you don't have proper comms with teammates. People get really used to, like, the most extreme version of what they used to do in StarCraft, where the joke in StarCraft is, if 2 Koreans played each other and one lost a fucking worker early in the game, they restarted the game because they were like, what's the point in playing this out? Like, people in League are like that. When Cadril first came on the scene, he would unironically pull up a VOD, show someone like fuck up the jungle pathing 2 minutes into the game, or like fucking not get the buff properly and be like, game's over, this is over. And if you play any of the carry roles, you're like, what are you talking about, bro? Like, there's a million things. But anyway, I get why people do that. So I don't like when people go, it was a throw when anyone ahead loses. Because I have a saying that goes like this. I've seen lots of LPL and LCK teams throw games at Worlds. The Western team couldn't catch it. If you want to use the metaphor of the throw, you have to be able to catch the throw. If I can throw it and you're fucking shit, just boomerangs back and I'm still ahead, aren't I? So, mate, this game 2 is one of the most unthrowable games I might have ever seen in League of Legends, and somehow these motherfuckers managed it. That's why I say when they're glazing Nuke, telling me how fucking glorious he is and making him sound so sick, it's like, mate, what am I watching in the game? Like, if you give that lead to a whole bunch of... You know, I'm not even the biggest humanoid fan, but if you had a lead like that, mate, you'd fucking kill the game. They'd close it. They'd definitely win. I don't think you could ever lose. Like, if you even look at the fights they're losing and when they're getting caught, it's like, how does this happen? Like, that's all those areas where, if I'm a coach, one thing I've always thought about League is it's really hard to coach anything in the mid-game because that scenario won't be identical every time. But what you do is you have basic, like, guidelines of we're this type of a team. This is our team colour and all that crap that they have in Korea, right? Essentially, they almost did everything you could do to lose the game once they had an impossible lead. Like, they didn't even use, like, all you do with that, surely, is you use fucking Riot's Fisher-Price macro buttons called the objectives, and you make people fight on your ground and into you where you want to fight. They were just doing stuff where, like, inexplicably just going and dying and getting caught and stuff. Genuinely, I hate to say a game's of throws, but this was a fucking crazy throw. Leader, what do you think?
I think for the outside point of view, when people see a throw, they will always, like, inting even, you know, like, I want to, like, correlate everything, like, inting, throwing, and playing good. People will just see, like, the first thing they see is the stats and the gold and the items, and they're like, okay, this guy is playing good, this guy is inting, and whatever. They never look at the actual context of stuff, and throwing is a big thing, I agree, and people don't understand one small throw can actually snowball into a bigger throw, like, really easily. And but a lot of people just don't see this, and it's very, very disappointing, right? So because it's easier to just point the finger on when the actual big explosion happens, you can just say, okay, this guy threw the game right here, he died, he got caught here. But then you just go back in time 30 seconds, and then you, for example, look at the setup of what was actually going to happen, and someone, for example, this is like very, very simple, right, misplaces a ward and someone just walks through it in a way because they saw the ward and they could, like, the ward was just shit, mega shit ward, and they catch the guy, then it's not on the guy that get caught. Like it's not his fault. It's more on the guy that didn't know how to place down his ward like a normal human being. And this guy gets shocked and he dies, and then they get Nash or something, and they will just point the finger on him. So obviously, like, throwing, people actually just don't know when throws like happens.
Did you think this was a bad one though?
I don't exactly remember how it was.
They were up a billion kills. They had like everything, bro. They had everyone was fed on the mid lane. It was fed. It was crazy.
They were 5k up at like 18 minutes or something.
Okay, but okay, if you throw a 5k gold lead thing, then it is a very big throw. Yes, I agree with that.
And they had the fed mid Tristana. Like, give me a break, bro. You know what I mean?
What I'll say from this game is basically, BDS were 5k gold ahead, and then Nuke tries to 1v1 Jojo in the side lane.
Oh, I remember.
And then, and then Yone gets back in the game from this because I think he gets top tower from it. He gets like 2 waves and things like this. When there's literally no reason for him to go back in. Like, Yone uses ult to engage on him, he can just walk away, right?
Yes.
And he jumps back in and just, oh my god.
The problem with that is people don't realize how big actual solo kill XP is. Like, you get so much XP from this, and if you die in mid game as a side laner, the one that usually catches or pushes waves, then you, especially if you're the strongest guy in the game, which he was that game on Tristana, then you lose all pressure on one side. The Yone is just going to base. Someone has to catch the other side. He's going to come out on base, walk straight into the other side of the jungle. Tristana is still dead, and now the game is unplayable. Now you're on the back foot the whole time because you cannot enter your jungle. You cannot contest mid waves, and you have to force a fight somehow. And forcing a fight into enemy territory will always be in a non-advantage one.
Here's the sad thing, Peter. I can tell you exactly what he was thinking. Not really. I'm going to speculate now. Here's the sad thing. The other reason I don't like Nuke, Peter. Look, 10% is because he talks shit to me on Twitter, but that's not even that big. It's not even really landed any blows when he does that, mate. He has no fucking material. It's just like, you're old. It's like, I'll still be old and you'll still be shit, mate. Like, there's a difference. You know, like, I was young once. Were you ever good? Who the fuck knows at this point in time? Guess when Crowley was piloting your brain. So, one of the things I hate about him, though, is this, mate, is he has the actual... Here's the joke. People don't like that Leader's arrogant, right? Leader has crazy fucking hands, and he actually has gapped people who are fucking mega in solo queue and LEC. Nuke talks like he has fucking Caliste Leader hands, but then he's just this boring bitch mage player who's just like, yeah, if you have every resource, you can carry the game. Like, okay, bro. You know, a lot of people could say that. A lot of fucking pretty good mage players could also be loaded up like that with their whole coach putting everything into them and then win the game. So what I don't like is, here's what I think he was thinking, Peter. He was thinking, I'm up in the game, I'm winning. I'm against this JoJo kid that everyone's talking about. I'm against this JoJo kid. Everyone is telling me he is fucking sick. He has nothing. Well, this is not NA. This is fucking not available, more like my friend, mon ami. And then he goes in and he's thinking, oh, this is your chance, Nuke. You are fucking fed, bro. You aren't Tristana now. You are Caps. And then he's going in like, oh, look at the moves. Oh, what the... And then he just gets fucking clapped immediately. And he, like you say, bro, you're the one player who should never be on his own fighting. Why are you doing that? Like, by the way, how would you ever lose a fight when you were fed like that? If you just make them have a normal fight, it'd be inconceivable to lose. So, like, but shout out to Nuke. I'll do my old joke from back, like, a few years back when he played against Mad Lions and they won the split where I just go, congratulations to Nuke, the MVP of the series for the other team. They couldn't have done it without you, and you really were the person who got them over the line. Like, give me a fucking break. Get up my face.
But I mean, the sad thing about Nuke is I don't think he's like that bad.
He's a good player, but he plays outside of his lines, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like you know what you're strong at and know what you're not strong at, and play to your strengths, right? Like that's the thing which frustrates me about this guy, because I don't think he understands what he's good at and what he's bad at.
Bro, you know everyone used to laugh at me and clown me like, haha, why are you a Froggen fan? He is boring. That's exactly why. This motherfucker never was like, oh, just flash in and just go for some fucking god cop. No, he was just like, oh, I'm still on the outside doing all the DPS. And if you all play correctly, maybe win the fight. Like, mate, take some fucking lessons. That's the sort of shit I want to see. Are you a Nuke defender, leader? Where you going on this one, mate?
I wouldn't say I'm a defender, but I'm not really like keen on him as well at the same time. Very, very neutral. I'm really neutral about LEC players in general, enough. I think. Okay. Like very, very neutral. I don't really care about them because in the end, it depends on how you're going to do international. I don't think anyone that plays LEC after one split will care about LEC again. They will obviously want to go against people that are dominating the league scene, like internationally, and how they're going to do that. And if I think Nuke is going to do good against the Chinese or the Korean teams or mid laners, I don't think so. For example, that's where I'm at. Like, it's not like he's going to fully solo lose the game or anything.
No.
I don't think he's that kind of player. But it's like you will see just the activity from both mid laners, how it's going to like the champions that are going to be piloted and how much space they make for each other in team fights and stuff. I think there's going to be a big difference about it, because I think in general Western players are very scared as well when they get to an international stage, and much less confidence than the Eastern ones.
That's why, by the way, even though I was actually a fan of how BDS played the game last year, in fact, the last 2 years, I always thought they were lucky they just went to that one Worlds. Like, if they'd have ever qualified to MSI or Worlds, bro, can you even imagine what people like Knight would have done to this guy, or even people that you don't think is Zika, they would have fucking murdered this guy. It would be ridiculous. And even then, even if they're not getting murdered by like the fucking Hands guys, you're not going to fucking play mage like Scout. It's going to be game over, mate. Good luck carrying that game.
I mean, sorry,
go on.
Go on.
Go on.
I think Leader's point though about going internationally and being able to play without fear is a really, really good one, right? And I'm a big Xerxes defender and big Kobe defender, and one of the big reasons why I really like those guys is that they were willing to go internationally. Like, we were losing every scrim in Europe, so we went internationally. We lost every scrim internationally as well, but they were still willing to go on stage and flash in and play. I mean, like, our win rate in LEC in scrims was like 20%, and we went internationally and our win rate was like 22%, right? So it went up, so they're still willing to like jump in, flash and play to their limits, and like that requires a certain amount of character, and not everyone has it, right? And you don't know until you.
One, that's the reason why whenever I see a boring mid in the LEC, I unironically do say I'd just have leader on my team. If I'm going to fucking be losing anyway, I'd actually like to do something in the game. But the actual international one that I think's underrated and always will be, I don't know why his career's over, is fucking Jizuke. Mate, I don't even get these teams that are outside. If you don't have Humanoid and Caps, like, what, you don't want Jizuke there? Like, that lunatic actually might think he could win a game against fucking Scout, mate. He probably thinks he's better than him, so in some ways you want a Delulu player like that. Not a Lulu player, a Delulu player. There you go. Right, okay, Leader, what is your ugly point?
My ugly point would be how disappointing MKOI has been, honestly. I expected more of them, like especially like how their mid-jungle support are functioning. I don't think they're functioning well together at all. How they're doing the plays. I feel like mid lane is very, very disconnected from every single play as well. I don't know what's going on there. And then that's more or less it. I would say, like, I expected more. I wanted them to actually be the third best team in the league. I actually like Jojo Pyun. Like, I like his personality. I don't know how good he is, because the last time I played against him was when I was in NA, and I had two scrim blocks against him, and he had good qualities for NA player. I think, like, he had good qualities, and he was actually willing to do stuff. And I like players that are actually willing to do stuff. So I was like excited to watch him play, but it was just, it was not what I expected. Let's just put it that way. Like, especially in LEC, I think it's the weakest it's ever been. I feel like MKOI with Elioya and Alvaro that has actually been performing really, really well throughout the years. Like, he's actually my biggest surprise for the last 2 years. Apart from Targamas, like, I just want to touch on Targamas really quickly. I hated playing with Targamas in solo queue. I hated seeing Targamas play as well. But this split, like, he's been playing really, really well, and it's very surprising. So I'm like happy for him. But when you have Alvaro that is playing good, and you have Elioya that is actually very active on the map and plays fearless, I would expect more that mid lane is more connected to the plays, and the team would just be much more active and actually like be more explosive than what they are, and win more games, and like have a little bit more of a competitive fight against Koi, which they didn't last time. It was not competitive at all. It was just a one-sided murder.
So, for me, the KC series. So this fits into a little bit about the KC scouting. So, I've watched more games of JoJo than probably anyone in the world. And what I would say is, and I haven't mentioned this before now because I just assumed other people weren't seeing properly what I was seeing. But now that KC clearly understand and we're clearly able to destroy, I can go into this in more detail. So the reason JoJo was bad on Cloud9, and the reason why he's been rough on KC, is he's not really good at using, or he hasn't over the last 2 years been very good at using jungle and support resources into his lane. You can go and look at the second KC game. There's a period on from 13 minutes to 16 minutes where enemy jungle comes bot, they make a play, then they get a kill. Jojo then opens bot to pick up the wave, and his support jungle play into his lane, and he gets nothing off it. They don't push the advantage. They're not able to get anything because KC are ahead in the game, and then it's enemy jungle support's turn to go, and his jungle support walk to the top side of the map, and he goes and tries to defend his tier 1 tower and dies underneath his tier 1 tower when it's not his turn to make an aggressive play. So they didn't use the resources, and then when the resources moved away, he continues to play as if he has resources. And this is, like, his laning phase is good, his team fighting is good, but this is something that on Cloud 9 especially, over and over again, he would die in the side lane, and it wasn't because he had no jungle proximity or no support proximity. It's that his support and jungle would go into his lane and they wouldn't get any advantage. When they got advantage, it was fine. When they didn't get advantage, it was really, really bad because he wouldn't play passively. And the reason this matters is, I think last week I talked about Koi being really fragile when Alvaro doesn't have a lead. And when Alvaro has the lead, it's really, really easy to play into Jojo's lane. Every single time Alvaro and Aluria play into his lane, Super's fogging from mid, they always get an advantage when they commit resources into Jojo's lane, and therefore the game becomes super easy to play. The difficulty is when they're behind and they commit resources and they don't get anything. And that's, I don't know if it's impatience, I don't know whether it's synergy, I don't know whether it's a Jojo issue, I don't know whether it's a team issue, but for whatever reason, this has been a problem, and KC just exploited him, like mega hard in this game, but also in the best of 1 in the regular season when he was on Ari. Sure, you talk about DPI or things like this, but the reason he's behind is because he's getting fucked on the sideline by enemy jungle support, right? And this is Koi need to fix this, right? Or they're just not going. They're done, right? It's not that much time. You've got 3 weeks so far, so 4 weeks. So, okay, fine. They've had 4 weeks and a bit of a boot camp. You've got away with things. I guess this team is a team that wins a decent amount of scrims because of how they play the game. But now other teams have shown they know how to exploit you. So how are you going to respond, right? And this is a bit on KC for being the first team to really punish Jojo in this way. It's a bit also on Koi for not finding the solution, right? But sometimes you need to get fucked to be able to fix your problems.
I think this comes from not being able to know, like, defensive plays. I think it looks like they're struggling with how you presented it. Like, if Jojo is catching a wave alone on side lane as Aurora, for example, and enemy jungle support can be there, I think it can be a team issue as well, because I'm looking at the first draft right now, and they had Aurora and they had the Cassandra top lane. And I don't know if the Cassandra was top lane at this point or like the other side of the map, but if they're playing, if the support and jungle is trying to make a play into the Cassandra lane and like dropping the Aurora, I think it's a big team mistake, and it's on Jojo for actually not adapting to the situation and just dropping that wave in bot lane and playing defensively as well. But it's on the team, like either it's on Jojo for not calling they can dive me, or the support not realizing that he needs to be bot lane if enemy support jungle can be bot lane to defend the dive. So I think it just comes from, most likely from scrims. If they're winning a lot, it's very, very hard to say to get used to or like get into the groove of being on the defensive side, like on the back foot, on the side that you're supposed to win, and when you weak side the side that you want to have a strong side. And I mean, it just comes down from poor practice then.
Yeah,
in the
maybe.
end.
Possible.
I have to say, I definitely agree with the overall point. Like, one of the things I find so underwhelming is, first of all, this looked like the most plug-and-play fucking roster of the entire league, arguably. Like, you have the 4 players that already had the cohesion in the past year with literally the same coach, and then you took Jojo Pyun, who the whole profile's supposed to be, has super sick hands, good in lane, and then he needs the jungler just tell him what to do. You've got the fucking jungler who wants to tell everyone what to do. Like, this should have just been awesome. And for me, this is why it's so worrying. Like, this team should basically have walked in the league and been like, depending on whether G2 and Fnatic are good, maybe we're the best team. Maybe we're like second best team. Like, we should easily be top 3. If you look right now, like, look, people are going to be out on Fnatic because they lost to G2. Spoiler, watch everyone play G2. They're all going to get fucking clapped right now. So if I had to rank the teams right now, G2's number 1. I don't know. Maybe I'll say Karmine Corp. They haven't played fucking G2, so I don't know. Karmine Corp and Fnatic can share second place. bro, KOI's coming in after that at this point in time. Like, they're like fourth, and it would be like they're clearly fourth at the moment. So, and by the way, they would have even had actually a 3-game series against BDS if the aforementioned insane throw just wasn't just gifted to them out of nowhere. So I think this is fucking bonkers stuff, mate. Like, I actually can't believe that, sometimes they still just look disjointed. Also, I thought last year you put the blueprint down. You just get the bot lane ahead, then Super, who, by the way, is like the nuke of fucking ADC. You're not some cracked out ruler, fucking Jackie Love guy. But I tell you what, if you have a lead and you get ahead with your champion, yes, you can carry the game. Then Alvaro's unlocked at that point in time, and him and Elyoya can go on their fucking mystical journeys across the map doing whatever the fuck they do. Merwin, I don't even know. It's just some space killer in the top lane on some like fucking Darian from Moscow 5 shit, like la 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 la, so whatever. But that works sometimes, as Adam's shown us in the league. Like, sometimes solo queue bullshit does actually work. And then you'd think if Jojo just comes, and again, I actually want Jojo. Here's what you need to take a lesson from, mate. Take a lesson from what Alabrov's doing in G2. He walked in the door like, maybe I am the new Mickey X. Fuck, I'm shit in the bed. Actually, maybe let's go back within, let's paint within the lines for a while. Let's see how this shit works before we try and break the rules. Mate, you're just doing too much. Like, I don't think you need to. I think he's a really skilled player, mate, but I thought this was going to be a way sicker team. I thought if you just upgrade Frescovi for Jojo, this team should fucking murk games. They were winning loads of the mid games with Frescovi there. No one even rated as a player. Everyone was just dissing all the time. So I don't get what's bad about it, mate. It just fucking sucks for some reason. And then I'll just throw this out there. This is just a random detail I've realised now. In the same way as it doesn't matter what microphone technology you put in the room with Peter, he always sounds like he's just on like a really old mobile phone, and he's just like, the signal's not quite good. You know, he's getting 2.5 bars. It's the same with his camera, bro. If you don't know, guys, his camera isn't dirty. It's not that he hasn't cleaned it, right? No matter what lighting you put in there, it looks like I've got a Nintendo 64 and I couldn't afford the expansion pack. And when he moves away, like the fucking draw rate goes back, he go back in the fucking mist or something. So I can't do anything about that, guys. It's all good. Anyway, so actually that's almost as underwhelming as Mad Coin. There you go. I've tied it back in somehow. Who knows how?
Sorry, it's funny because I don't even have a gaming desk here, so I'm literally there's a stack of board games which is about like this high, which is balancing my laptop.
Right. So it's sat on top of Settlers of Catan right now. Okay, it's the most janky setup of all time. Fair enough. Seven Wonders.
Yeah. But I mean, basically, the reason why I go hard on Koi for this is that the formula for how to beat Koi has just been shown, right? Stop Alvaro playing in the first 10 minutes. Preferably get him behind. You're not always going to get him behind because they're going to call for jungle. But like, just stop him being able to do anything, and then just go to Jojo's lane between 10 and 20. 10 and 25, right? And then just stop him from being able to play. And what's his team going to do? And yeah, they have to do something. And let's be clear, I want Koi to win because obviously I want Jojo to win, right? But like right now, this team doesn't work properly, and he is part of that. And to me, it's from the outside, it looks like he's not calling the resources properly, or when he's getting resources, he's not using them properly when he gets them. But it could be team not listening to him. Who knows what it is, right? But there's something that's up here, and he is part of that. So I hope they fix it, because man, I want to see Koi win, because I put them number 1 on my tier list, and like I'm gonna look like a clown if they come fourth. So.
Sure. By the way, I'll even say it, like, obviously this is a joke. This is not any likeness to anyone real or with the same name in real life is purely coincidental. This is just a one-man play where I imagine a hypothetical set of people called Jojo and Elyoya and Niski, which is, mate, in theory, Jojo's been through the Inspired fires, mate, where absolutely he has super high expectations of what you should do and what you should be and all that. But I will say, people don't know. Inspired is just jokingly toxic publicly. I've actually heard he's a really cool teammate behind the scenes and sort of does take time out, put his arm around people and sort of bring them on. You know what? That hasn't worked so far, Elyoya. So I need you to channel. I need you that thing where you'll get a dartboard in England, you put your enemy's face on it, so you throw darts at it. It's like a voodoo way to get out of your system. And every time this guy fucks up completely on a side wave or just instant again, I need you to just think of Niski, bro. That's why I need Elyoya. I need you to channel that feeling that you had when that fucking Belgian guy was in the mid and he kept fucking throwing every game. Give me some of that heat, because I tell you what, this guy, certain people, I don't know what backgrounds come from, some people just respond to you. Need a little bit of friction, mate. You can't just be like, well, Get them next time, mate. We'll get them next time. There's no next time. Fucking start winning now. This team's supposed to win today. Also, I'm just going to put this out there. This is the whole narrative of your career. You are the first proper NA star to come to the LEC, bro. We don't want this to be like, hey, it's a guy coming up from the ERL. Will he be okay? No, there's none of that shit. You're supposed to walk in a champion, someone who's been to Worlds a bunch of times, been an MVP of the LCS. By the way, right now, LCS MVP is you're devaluing that award, mate. At this point in time, that sounds like fucking LFL MVP. So I don't respect that right now. I need to see more. Hey, you've been hyped. I want it. By the way, I'm with you, Peter. The marquee angle's fucking sick if this team works out, especially if JoJo's really good. But right now, it's underwhelming. Come on, just whack it.
I would have to agree with him.
Okay, what is your ugly point, Peter?
My ugly point is lower bracket. So if we go and look at the lower bracket series, none of these series look like they're going to be fun. We just saw a ton of 2-0. But the one series that should be fun, and we've talked a lot about BDS, is BDS versus
Vitality.
Is BDS versus Vitality, right? I mean, in theory, you look at the rest of the losers bracket, GX should win and then lose to Koi, and then in theory, Fnatic should beat whoever wins out to BDS and Vitality, and we'll get our Fnatic versus Koi, in theory, okay? But the thing about Vitality versus BDS is I should be mega hyped for this series. I'm going to get to see 3 rookies. I'm going to get to see 3 rookies and Linkas, who is kind of he's like a second split player, right? But all I'm worried about in this game, and obviously, I really want Mac to do well. But all I'm thinking in this series is, please don't run it down. Like, please don't run it down. It's like, please, I beg you, right? Because they had so the Vitality versus K Corp series was very winnable.
They could have won one game at least, mate. They could have
won one game, and like there are things that Hylissang did that were good in this series, right? There were things where he got a good engage, right? And in game one, there's very little to defend, right? Like he just flashed in underneath the tower, level 2, trying to chase a gank that wasn't there when they blown summoners, and he just died, right? And they gave it first blood, and then enemy kept going bot, and he went 0-8 and like in the first 15. I can't even remember, but he was like 0-8 at one point, right? Like so that's on you, right? But game 2, he gets them back into the game. He has the key team fight, so they're behind early. But they get him back into the game because he has a really good engage. And then Kazi gets caught. But him and Kazi, what happens is Kazi gets caught. The game is fine, right? They're behind early. They get a good engage on mid. They're really fine in the game with their Sivir scaling. Kazi overextends on mid. They give up Baron, fine. But they get kills off that, and then there's another play on the top tier 2 tower where they take the top tier 2 tower and then they restay in the jungle for too long. Kazi ends up blowing his flash, and in the key team fight, which happens like 90 seconds later, Kazi doesn't have flash and he just dies, right? And I love that. Like I think this team has so much potential, but I cannot watch this team without having, heart palpitations, Okay. I'm just like, please don't throw, right? Like, come on, guys, like, you could definitely do it. And Vitality, same thing happened in regular season, right? Like, actually, when I was asked about the round 1 matchups, I was like, I can't see any of these being close, except Vitality Koi, because Vitality were destroyed. Sorry, not Vitality K Corp, because Vitality were massively ahead in the week 3 game. And yeah, it's just this team is so frustrating to watch because you could see how they're so close to being there, but you always have to worry that somebody, normally Hilly, but somebody else sometimes, I'd say like 60% Hylissang, 40% rest of the team together, gets caught, and it's very frustrating. And from the BDS side, I want to have confidence in this team, but like after watching them throw that game against Koi, I don't know. But it should be a banger. But it's sad to me that the most exciting game that I think we're going to see until the top 4 is going to be one which is going to be decided by who throws less. And yeah, we'll see.
What do you think, Leader?
I agree with him. I think it's there's so many volatile players going on into this series between BDS and Vitality. Like there is 1-on-3 on one side, and then there is Hylissang on the other side, and a little bit of Karzi. And I think there's going to be a lot of throwing, or sometimes like what can happen is actually just like when I was playing against Hylissang, he was not getting caught at all. I don't know what it was with him when I played in Vitality against him in Fnatic. Like game 5, he was playing so well on Alistar. Like it was actually surprising. There was like no overstepping, and he was finding so many good flanks. Maybe like that kind of Hylissang is just going to turn up for the series, and it's just going to be a clean 2-0 wipe. But it is like a very exciting match in a way where anything can just randomly happen. Like something might just explode out of random places. And I don't know what the other match is in the lower bracket. It's
GX
Fnatic
versus Heretics.
Oh,
Because
GX.
then there's
Yeah,
in the
okay.
next round the other two teams that drop players. So we've got that.
Okay,
That's
yeah,
probably a crap one, right?
Yeah, like GX Heretics is for sure like the least interesting match you can watch, I guess. Like the one interesting thing you can watch is if GX is actually bouncing back or not from their
That's
slump.
true. That's true.
That's like the only thing that is interesting in that. But I agree with Peter. Yeah, like Vitality is a hard problem-inducing team just because of their bot lane. But the other side as well, they have 1-3 who has given me some hard problems as well. So it's going to be interesting to watch because of that.
I will say just to link back to what we were talking about earlier with BDS, the one kind of thing you can attack on Vitality. Okay, so the thing you do on Vitality is just against Vitality is just wait until somebody fucks up. But if you want to actually attack Vitality rather than waiting for them to fuck up, the one person that you can maybe attack on this team is Knack, because I think his side laning isn't great and his laning phase has been better than I thought it was going to be. But definitely his side laning hasn't been insane. His team fighting's been god tier though. And I think you can, if Irrelevant is going to call resources, maybe they can do something there. But yeah, I think that this is going to be a full clan fiesta. I think that benefits Vitality, I will say.
Okay.
That's.
I'm with you. If you look at the mix, it is obviously like, this is like bad chemistry, isn't it? You're just putting all explosive fucking materials together and then hoping that you don't just blow up. So you've not only got, like, first of all, 1-1-3. Listen, I liked him when he was in your Astralis, but bro, this guy never got the memo. Like, he is one of those players who just thinks, like, whatever I did in the RLs, that'll work in LEC too. Like, mate, when you're in that Viego, you aren't Canyon, you know. I know you think you're like Canyon or fucking Tian or something like. It isn't the same at LEC level, bro. That probably would smurf all the games in the RLs. I haven't seen it that much in the LEC, except for that fucking split when you were playing with Leader. And then also, you look on the other side, there's all the rookies. I don't even blame rookies if they fall apart in the playoffs. I've never been there before. By the way, they haven't even played real fucking Fearless Draft yet in a real game. Like, this is the first series they're playing. So I'll actually give a lot of rookies the extra asterisk for this one split. And the problem I have with this game is, if I look at the two teams and I look at who I can rely on and who I can expect to carry games, it's both the ADCs, even though, by the way, they have like polar opposite ADC styles. Like, Kazi is the lunatic who goes in, you have to follow him in, and then he'll decide if he comes out or the fight just never ends and he kills everyone. Ice is the guy where, like, I'd actually love to know what their comments are like. I could imagine he's never spoken a word. He just looks like he's just like the solo queue ADC who just does all the consistent damage. And there's no way you could, like, he's not Kan-Sama calling the fucking fights or saying what Caliste. He just goes in, does his damage. If you give him the space, like the peel or the pocket, as it were, he can do all the damage. But if you just let him go on his own, he's going to fucking get banged. So the question is this: which team will let their fucking ADC play the game? Who actually gets to carry these team fights? Because the other thing is, while they're trying to carry their team fights, people's going all over the place. So this could be a clusterfuck. This could be. But here's the thing, though. Here's the positive for you, Peter. Either this bullshit rookie roster of Vitality wins, in which case you get to go, oh, see, invest in the youth. They are our future. Or your boy Hylissang survives another day and you're like, see, not totally washed. So either way, you win either way. You're the only person. The viewers won't win. The teams won't win. The LEC won't win. The only person who'll win in this series is Peter Dun. That's why it is an ugly point. It's a very ugly point. You're not even in the league.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, the last point of the show is mine, of course. So my ugly point, I'm going to bring us all the way back to the beginning, because obviously Fnatic, to me, was one of the dominating themes of the week. 1 second before that series began, I can tell you right now, mate, everyone on Fnatic, the whole social media, the coach, the fucking pros, they all had what their straight fire banter was going to be after the game when they 2-0'd and beat G2. It was going to be some shit like Mickey X, like, oh, I guess that upgrade didn't, you know, like some shit like that. Fucking Upset was probably going to be like, oh, I thought I was a KDA player. Oh, look at my KDA in this shit. Whatever. Grabs would be like, oh, I'm back, baby. I'm back. I actually can do drafts. Like, it's not me fucking this shit up. But then problem is, if you watch the way the series went, if you ask me, I always say, I'll give everyone the status. The last few years, if you ask me who the best player in the LEC is, it probably is the boring answer. It's probably Caps. Like, he almost never had a bad game. He couldn't even fight you out of games that were bad. If he ever got a lead by the last couple of years, he was way better than he was, I think, even in the old G2s and Fnatic. He could just close every game. But the second best player I've always said the last year or two is Razork. I think that guy, when he's on his shit, like, because here's the problem, he's doing everything as a jungler. He'd do the early game pathing, he'd get ahead, he'd get some ganks off, he'd get fed himself on his right champions, he'd carry a team fight, and then here's what would happen when they didn't have MKOI. He would then have a game, especially against G2 sadly every fucking time, where it's like he just fucking, it's like the joke is that thing where you see, if you're in NA and you see Bjergsen, or if you're playing in the Worlds and you see Faker, you're like, I must go in and kill him, it's Faker or Bjergsen, and then you just go in and hit the kill, like, what are you doing? So the problem I have is this guy seems to me like someone where they're still putting all the burden on his shoulders. He looks like he has to do everything in the game, mate. And the worst thing is, at the end, if he then does the fuck up, and he did some mad fuck ups in this series, if he does that, he's also not the guy, by the way. One of the things, I'll give you a quick sidebar, that I've always mega respected when I found out from coaches and players about the old NA jungler, Smithy, is, bro, this might be the greatest jungler I've ever seen from behind in a game. He'd be behind on a champion that can't even get ahead at that point. And he'd just somehow, like, stay in the game. He'd have the poise to know, like, how do you grind back in? He'd even do the classic thing that solo queue players should learn, which is, my game's over. Can I just do one useful thing in the game that lets, like, my carry win the fucking fight? Crazy thought, I know, some of the people out there in the world. So the problem is, Razork looks like he takes every fuck up and every loss so to heart. It just destroys him, bro. I've never seen anyone who's so good just get so mentally destroyed from a loss. So I feel like in their team, if I'm Grabs, if I'm the rest of them, bro, can we just lift some of the burden? Can he just be a jungler instead of just having to be like the win condition all the times? Because it could also turn into then he's the loss condition. And I think actually he's also the worst one ever, because the second he loses, it's like, right, time for his apology tour on social media. Like, fucking hell, you don't have to apologize. You owe these fuckers nothing. They're just watching you play with my gold level knowledge going, why did he go in? Because you died. If you'd have gone in and got the fucking knock up and killed the guy, they'd go, it's genius, look what he's doing. So I think my ugly point, it's not bad, it's not good, because I do think he's mega right, but it feels like he's the jungler that has the most burden on his shoulders of any in the league to me. Thoughts, leader?
I think the one thing I disagree with you is that Caps is the best player. I actually think Razork is the best player in the LEC right now. Yeah, I think he's really, really insanely playing good on his champions. He finds engages that are actually good. And I think the only reason why the last series didn't work out was because he was sold in draft. It was sold in both drafts. And because of that, it can just, as a player, you will feel like you had a bad day or something. But sometimes it just feels unplayable, or like you want to play your champion how it's supposed to be played. But it's like, usually this works out because the follow-up, for example, when you're playing Vi is there, but you don't have follow-up when you're playing Vi this time. Or when you're playing Skarner, you can front to back, but you don't have any DPS or front to back damage. So you feel like you need to go in and like make something happen, or like dive in as Skarner, or like try to win the game in the way that you think, and you might end up looking like an Inter. And that is like a good quality to have for each player. But I think like Razork is so insanely good in all stages of the game that you need to like not sell him in draft. Like you cannot sell him in draft like this. You cannot first pick him a champion and then you just completely like draft away from the strength of the first pick champion. And that's why he just looked bad. I don't think he should be making any apologies, but that's just how the league scene honestly is. Like you cannot like really say like, sure, I messed up, but to be fair, the draft is very, very unplayable for me against them. And why do I have a Mel when I'm playing Vi? And why do I have an Ambessa and Ari when I'm playing Skarner? Like what is going on in this draft? You can't say this, you know. But the majority of the people that are watching don't know this, you know. Like obviously, as a pro player, no matter what kind of situation you're put in, you should be playing the most optimal way, like in the end, right? But it's either you lose slowly because you feel like you're going to lose slowly because your comp is like so bad and you have not been able to do something, and you're getting impatient and more impatient because nothing is working out, and you feel like you have to do this and it doesn't work out, and if it did, you're like the greatest player alive, or like, wow, he made such a clutch play, or it just doesn't work out and you just lose faster than you're supposed to lose.
So I actually agree with Leader. I think we covered Fnatic a bit earlier, but the ugly point I would put on this is that there's the expectation that somebody has to come and do it, because you know, like Fnatic are a big team, so there's a lot of criticism when they lose, and they have a fan base that turns on their team quite aggressively, right? And Razork, I think, is the only one on that team who is without reproach, right? Like, imagine if Humanoid is the one writing an apology letter like this, even when it's not his fault, right? Like, or you have Upset writing it, or you have Oscar, saying, "Oh, my bad." It's different, right? And to me, the thing which is frustrating is that Razork takes a lot of blame, like you guys have said, for things that aren't on him. And I don't mean for draft, because draft could be on him, right? Like, he's the one, maybe he thinks that Mel Vi is fine, right? Like, we don't know that. But what I do know is that sometimes he gets his team a 2K lead or 3K lead or something like this, and that's sometimes all you can do as a jungler, and that he's done his job, right? But people will always expect more, and as a jungler, you get less resources than other people, right? So you're eventually going to fall off, and it becomes the responsibility of your team. You can be the one who brings the ducklings to water, but you can't force them to not sink, right? So
yes.
So yeah. So I think that's what I would say on Razork. I do think, there's a game in theory, assuming KOI don't throw anything, or Fnatic don't lose to BDS or Vitality. There is in theory a KOI Fnatic matchup in next week, which should be really, really, if they win the. No, it's a week after. In the future, which should be a banger, and we'll see. It will be the first time we see Fnatic play, because since the playoffs, and I'll be honest, I've learned literally nothing about Fnatic from the last weekend, because I didn't learn anything for the G2 series, and the Heretic series went exactly as you would expect, right? So I don't even know if this team is a good playoff team. Maybe this team is like a choking playoff team. I mean, I look at the players and I don't think they should, but we don't know that, right? So let's go and see. This is the first hardship they faced as a team, so interested to see how they respond.
By the way, I'm with Leader as well. If I have this guy, mate, I'm deciding most of my drafts around him. I'm giving him the first pick, and then we're just making the draft around what makes this guy fucking cracked. Because I also agree with what he said earlier. I think it ties into what you were talking about with hinting, Leader, which is all the fan ever sees is essentially the equivalent in football of the losing goal. And then they just go, "Oh, that defender fucked up." And it's like, no, maybe like the work rate of the midfielder, just let them go past, or you took a really hasty shot when your defense wasn't back or something. The question is, how did you get into the position where someone did one mistake that lost the game? So, spoiler, if you're a jungler, every solo queue player knows this. It's always your fault that you did the wrong fucking last dive and last gank and the one that didn't work, etc. So no, I think it's it. But the worst thing about it is this. I can only speculate from what I've seen in interviews on social media. But the one area I don't fuck with Razork is his personality. It's like, mate, you should have some Caliste of like Jojo Pion level swag where it's like, I'm the best or whatever. Like, here's what he needs. He needs like a fucking attitude transfusion from El Yoya. Because, mate, El Yoya thinks he is fucking Canyon or something. He said, what are you talking about? Give me the game, give me first pick, give me control on me. It was you who fucked up when I went in. Why didn't you come in with me? I want that shit from him, mate. Now, look, don't get me wrong. He's not going to be used to it. When it fucking comes through the IV, he's going to go, it burns, Mr. Thorin. I'm going to go, that's the fucking Bane Venom, son. That's what's going to make you strong. So embrace the toxicity. That's how we'll end the show, Peter. Embrace the toxicity. If you're a jungler, embrace the toxicity and fucking stop letting these mid laners tell you what to do in the game. You're the star of the show. It's all about you.
Sure.